everyone, welcome to Crank It Up Podcast, the YouTube home of Brigham Games. I'm Jim Price, designer of Erudia, Battle of Birthrights, and today I'm not going to do much of anything. In this video, you will meet the Acolytes from our Acolytes. I've asked 8 of our senior team members with extensive experience in a specific class to talk about their favorite Acolyte and the one they'd be most likely to draft in the primary. If you aren't familiar with Erudia, Acolytes are special units with unique abilities, and you can draft one per class into your starting hand. Acolytes are at the heart of Erudia. It's why their rank symbol is on the card back, because the Acolyte system really allows you to customize your strategy. You get to decide how you want to play a class by ensuring that you have access to a powerful ability, and that choice will differ from person to person, allowing personality to shine through. I truly love this aspect of the game, because it's hard to be wrong when it's about preference. For example, I only agree personally with 2 of these suggestions. I knew I'd agree on one, and I was pleasantly surprised by the second. And this doesn't mean that any of our contributors are wrong, except for Eric, who's definitely wrong. Today you'll meet an Acolyte from each primary class. Instead of hearing from my perspective, let's hear from the teams, starting with Geek 13579 talking about the Cavalry.
Hello, this is Geek 13579. For my sections of Meet the Acolytes, I'll be covering Cavalry, which is one of my favorites in the base set for being easy to pick up, while still offering a huge diversity of ways to play, because their cards say move, but not to any specific battlefield, so you can adapt them to your playstyle. My favorite Acolyte amongst these is Epona, who has the very vanilla ability to just move an ally to any battlefield, and also a small power boost. Cavalry easily have the most quantity of cards that give movements, and hence they're designed to benefit from it, with base modifiers that increase your power, items that benefit from movements, or units who themselves trigger their effects when they move, most notably the Recruit. You've already seen the Horseman. While Epona isn't flashy at all, she enables you to have all your effects at all time. So she enables you to either converge all your units to one base to win their solo. You can move the least amount of units you need to win a base so that you're saving up resources for later, or you can use the least amount of units you need to take a decently easy second place. While her effect does exist in the form of an attachment to any unit, having her around means you're less vulnerable to disruption since you aren't putting all your eggs into one basket. In the secondary, movement becomes more of a rarity, so drafting her is pretty good because it will enable you to get all your effects off instead of having cards that can potentially do nothing in your hand. Also, amongst the cards you have, she'll probably be a low priority target for destruction. You have cards that can gain you more power, so she can stick around for a long time and garner a lot of value. Epona is not the one who's the best at making big plays, but having her around enables you to have way more reach, and it'll force your opponent to play differently, knowing that you can move your units anywhere, so they'll have to be more conservative or way more aggressive and spend all their resources earlier.
Hey everyone, my name is Alex, aka Schmalix, and I'm one of the playtesters for Erudia. I'm very grateful to Bandit for inviting me to be a part of this video. When he asked me to share my thoughts on the topic of favorite Acolyte, I knew immediately which Acolyte I wanted to talk about, and that's Maynard of the Chemists. A bit about the Chemists for context. The Chemists are a high-powered burst class who aim to achieve their crazy bursts of power through the use of items, especially items that have the reusable feature. As a burst faction, Chemists are likely to have a game plan that involves capturing battlefields solo, or capturing multiple battlefields in one turn in order to outpace their rival. So, Chemists are all about the items. But this can be further broken down into 2 distinct goals that the class has. First, they want a means to play several items in a single turn. And second, they want a way to make maximum use out of the items that they play. That's where Maynard comes in, as she is the Acolyte from this class that can do both of these things. Her command allows you to play an extra item by discarding an item, which achieves the first goal. And her React gives her 1 extra temporary power whenever a reusable item is used on her, which accomplishes the second goal. For an example of how this could play out, consider this. On one turn, you play Maynard on an empty base that you want to capture. You also give her Catch Potion and a shield. That's 3 points of power creep with some decent protection. On your next turn, play Alchemist on the target base with Warfare. Now we're at 7 power. Play Astatine with support on Alchemist. That's 10. Catch Potion copies Astatine onto Maynard. That's 14. Use Maynard's command and discard an item to play Cesium on Maynard for a strength and a shield. That's 17. Play Water on Acid with Advance. Use Astatine, which is in Limbo, on Maynard again. That's 21. Effects A and C of Water on Acid trigger, and X equals 2. Maynard and Alchemist each gain 1 power, and the target battlefield takes 2 breakpoint damage. The net result is a drop of 22 for a total of 25 power. That's enough to solo capture 19 of the 20 battlefields in the core set, and it's a very realistic play. You have 2 copies each of Alchemist, Catch Potion, and Water on Acid, and you have 3 copies of Astatine. Cesium is only a single copy, but can easily be substituted for a second Astatine for 1 less net power, or, if you drafted it, Tears of Undine can be substituted for 2 less net power, still easily enough to capture more than half of the battlefields. And you always have Toluene in your back pocket to kick off your rival if they decided to commit on your target base during the off turn. And that's just a taste of the explosive punch Chemist can pack. I see Maynard as the centerpiece of the Chemist class, and an Acolyte that particularly exemplifies the Chemist strategy and playstyle. Plus, Maynard has a fun and unique synergy with that secret class I can't talk about, which will be coming to you in the first expansion. That's all I got. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy Maynard and the Chemists as much as I do.
Hello, Crank It Up. My name is Spencer, or as I go by on Discord and Reddit, Anachronistic Uranium. I got drafted into playtesting Erudia, so I was going to share some of my experiences in playing one of my favorite factions. Odrian is whom I would consider one of the most dangerous of the Cleric Acolytes because of his ability to deal damage and for his ability to utilize the Cleric's most innate goal, excess healing. Erudia Battle for Birthright is a game where options are king. The cards that give you more options to use the mechanics of the game in more creative ways allow you to do better in each game. The Cleric class, and more specifically the arsenal of Cleric Acolytes, give the player more options to do what they need to in their game, and one specific Acolyte allows the Cleric class to pivot in more unique ways than normal. The Clerics do have 2 Acolytes that I considered as runner-ups, which both feel reminiscent of the Dowsing Rod Royal item, because these 2 Acolytes each let you search for specific types of cards that are crucial to the Cleric's class components. However, Odrian can be the most important Acolyte to the Clerics because he allows for the Cleric class to do something that it normally doesn't do. Odrian diverts excess healing into damage. One of the coolest design philosophies that the Cleric class has undertaken is the interrupt that most cards have that allow you to use the natural healing and convert it into strength. This is significant because most games with healing mechanisms have to make you stop healing after your character or characters are healed, and in a resource management game, that can cause your hand to be clogged up with the same cards if your enemy isn't damaging you. This natural interrupt allows for undamaged units to get stronger, and for your Cleric class cards to retain their strength and use throughout the game in every situation, whether you are at the start of the game or if your rival can even damage you. This design philosophy feels like the bread and butter of Odrian. The reason why he's the Cleric Acolyte that I'm most likely to draft is because he can cause the Cleric class to pivot into a new role. Even from the beginning of the game, in any situation you can decide if you want to strengthen a unit, damage a rival, or place a charge with your excess healing.
Hi, I'm Scott Wilbur, also known as Wren for the Community Discord server and lead contributor to the Fighter class. The Fighter is designed with 2 primary strategies in mind: control and sustainability. Control is easy. Kill your rival's units. Sustainability is a bigger trick, takes a little bit of skill and planning to land that 1-2 punch to both maintain enough presence and power during battlefield capture, and then pivot to the next battlefield so your units remain in play past the battlefield cleanup phase. With sustainability in mind, I find Attila tends to be my favorite Acolyte to draft on a regular basis. Attila combos quite well off many of the fighter's cards. Leaving him in a strategic position also allows you to do a significant amount of plink damage to your rival, potentially providing additional strength to stealth swords, doing enough damage to remove units completely, making it significantly easier to trigger abilities like Rampage, Guerrilla Warfare, and Quickening as bonus plays, while both stealing bases from your opponent and maintaining your table presence. There's nothing quite like having Attila nearby when capturing a battlefield while your rival's units are nearly dead, to be able to reduce their presence and potentially solo capture, then pivot to another battlefield with Guerrilla Warfare and Rampage to ensure you can get the most from your units. War is often a battle of attrition, and there's currently no other class that has the tools to sustain the long fight quite like the fighters do.
What is up, minions? Major here once again on the channel. So thankful that Jim asked me to come back and talk about my favorite acolyte in the Knights. Now, it was a toss-up for me. There's a lot of good acolytes in this, but as I was thinking about what the Knights' game plan is, they love to play from behind. They love to be able to kind of slowly build up. They let their opponents kind of win the first couple bases and then just kind of steamroll late game. And so as I was looking through the acolytes, I thought the best one that embodies this is Garamond. Now, when we look at Garamond's ability, it's a retreat here ability, that if you lose on that base, you're allowed to move them to another base. Now, I can't think of another way to embody the Knights than lose on one base to set yourself up for success on another base. It's okay to let your rival win one so you can set yourself up for future success. Now, in a game like Erudia, where resources are very much important, you don't want to overspend them. But this is a great way to have your opponent overspend their resources and snag an easy second place, then quickly pivot to another base to either get an early lead or set yourself up for a double base score. Now, when I was thinking about some big plays that you can do with Garamond, one comes to mind. You can set up by equipping them with all the Knights' weapons, strengths, shields, all these things that the Knights do really well. And you can set that up on your turn to break either a desert or even a mountain. A desert, obviously, you get more points for second place, but mountains are great too because there's only a 1 point difference between first place and second place on that. So set it up, power them up, get them to, 6, 7, 8 power, but make sure that your opponent still wins. And then after you do that, you can shift him over to another base that you may have already set up on for an easy double base score or even trip an objective on another base. Now, these are great things that you can use Garamond for. And as I was thinking about the final reason why he's my favorite acolyte, just look at his artwork. It is incredible. I love the dragon in the background. Not saying that all the other acolyte artwork isn't fantastic, but Garamond he's just slightly better than my second favorite, which is Harvey. So that's what I have here as my favorite acolyte, as well as the one that encompasses what the Knights are supposed to do. Early seconds to get first place later on and win the game in the late game. Thank you guys so much for this, and sending it back over to you.
Hi, Eric the Punisher here, and today I'm going to talk about Marco, my absolute favorite acolyte from Erudia. Marco is from the Scouts deck, and yes, he's in reference to Marco Polo, the famous Italian explorer. Let's take a look at his command ability. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a unit, you must deploy it here, now. Otherwise, return it. Off the cuff, this may look like a gamble, and on occasion, it may be true. However, if you do not know what is coming up in your deck, then you are seriously underutilizing the Scouts. Let's take a look at some examples of how you can prepare your deck for Marco to trigger successfully. Number 1, the Informant. With 3 of these units in your deck, it is quite often that you'll be using them to see the next 4 cards of your deck if you so choose. Remember, they can look at any deck to include battlefields, treasury decks for knowledge of what your opponent didn't take, or either player deck. Number 2, Tini. Another Scout Acolyte can also be used to not only look at your deck, but reorganize it as well. Number 3, Recon. This action allows you to prepare a unit of power 3 or less. This means top decking a unit, which you can activate with Marco to get precisely what unit you want. My favorite units to prepare are the Smugglers, since their ready ability eliminates the delay when they are deployed. They are like a free unit play, hopefully triggering an Informant's react ability for massive power gain. Number 4, the Erudia Battlefield command, which allows you to look at the top 3 cards of your deck. In addition, you can bury one of those cards, which can give you some deck manipulation. However, base commands can only be used if you have a unit present. Number 5, a lot of other factions have the ability to manipulate their deck. Plus, you can always use the optional card draw at the end of your turn to prepare for your next turn. For example, if due to the informant you knew that you had 2 units back to back that you wanted to deploy with Marco, you can just not draw any cards. Which, if you're ever playing against scouts and you see that they draw less than 2 cards, prepare for some shenanigans on their next turn. Let's look at some limitations of Marco and how to overcome them. First of all, he can only deploy units to the battlefield he is at, which means the battlefield which he is at can break sooner than later. However, putting the Sylvan Boots and the Cloak of Charon on him can make him a mobile stealthy unit deploy engine. Both of these items increase his health, which means he can survive some hits when the cloak gets negated. The boots allow him to drop off units wherever you need them. Additionally, decoys can always pivot if you feel like you have too much power on a battlefield, but can't break it. Yes, they only have 1 point, but there have been times when a single point have made all the difference. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of synergy with the scouts and the other factions. I would love to see what synergies you discover when playing as either the primary or secondary faction. Currently, they are only available as a secondary faction in the demo, but they are available as a primary faction in the main deck, and I look forward to you exploring all the possibilities. Until next time, let's shut it down.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen McCarg. The Erudia playtesters know me as Judd Brown, and my fellow skeleton acolytes know me as Judd. My favorite primary class in Erudia at this point in time is Thieves. Yes, Thieves like to steal items from their opponent, but also Thieves' main playstyle want units to be cloaked and be hidden in the shadows until it is their time to pounce. With Thieves, it is common to see a couple setup turns with units cloaked, and then, when it is time, several units are uncloaked at once, and a lot of power bursts on 1 or more battlefields on a single turn. My favorite Thieve Acolyte, Parker, demonstrates this Thieve strategy in the best way possible. Parker's command, which can be used once per turn, allows her to cloak an allied unit, or discard a card to uncloak an allied unit. This command is great to set up and cloak additional units on Parker's battlefield, but ultimately, it is her react that gives her true strength. After an allied unit uncloaks on any battlefield, it gains 1 temporary power. When you talk about uncloaking multiple units in a turn, the temporary power really can add up to help burst to break a battlefield. Oh, and I can't talk about Parker without discussing her partner in crime, Borrow. Borrow is very similar to Parker, but his command has the reverse of Parker, where he can uncloak for free, but a card must be discarded to cloak a unit. What makes Parker and Borrow a tremendous team is if you have both Parker and Borrow in play and uncloaked, every unit that is uncloaked in a turn gains +2 temporary power, 1 from Parker's react and 1 from Borrow's react. When set up properly, you can easily break 2 or more battlefields in a turn. It feels so satisfying pulling this off. The abilities speak for themselves. While there is so much more I could rant on how great Parker is, I will stop there, and with that, Big Judd Brown is out.
Salutations, I'm Daniel, and I'll be talking to you about the Wizards' Acolytes. The Wizards have the most flexible Acolyte choice, since they have very comparable abilities. 4 of the 5 allow you to search your deck for a spell with an elemental affinity. This allows you to pick the Acolyte that will be best against your opponent. Being able to search your deck for an elemental spell is very powerful, as it gives you the flexibility to get what you need when you need it. Since this search is only based on elements, this allows you to combo them with other factions that have elemental spells. I particularly like Vulcan, as my favorite faction to use with the Wizards are dragons, and dragons have a very powerful fire spell. Neptune is my usual pick with the Wizards, as the water spell Aquacade allows you to move any unit. This allows you to deal with your opponent's engine acolyte they may have drafted and get it out of the game as soon as possible by moving them to another battlefield for an effective break. As Wizards are studious in nature, be sure you study your opponent and anticipate their next action.
Each of our contributors brings up great points, and it's hard to argue with their choice, especially since I love all of these acolytes. This is something we're really proud of with Erudia. If we do our job right, there should be at least 3 meaningful, viable candidates, and we've been seeing plenty of disagreement on the Discord. This choice will change with each class, especially as expansions are added, so customization will always be there. For the classes you've played in the demo, who is your favorite acolyte? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, let's shut it down.